My name is Kudrat. I'm Uyghur. I was born in Atush. Atush is in East Turkestan. It's 20 minutes away from Kashgar. And I grew up there and left home when I was 10 years old. We we moved, we left, and we went to Malaysia. How it happened was, um, it was because of political reasons, especially for my father. He left first. He left when he was 9 years old, and my mom, my younger brother, we stayed back in Atush. And for a year, my mom, worked really hard to get passports for all of us, the three of us, so that we would, go to Malaysia as well. And after so many tries, so many connections with the police department, the local government, were we able to get passports, but just for my mom and brother. They wouldn't issue one for me, claiming it would have a very negative effect for me to leave, in terms of education. So I was to stay in Atush with my grandparents. They were still alive back then. And my mom and brother would leave. But they couldn't bear the pain, and so they tried even harder. After more bribing, I was able to get a passport as well, and that's how we moved. As a child, young child, I wasn't aware, and not much was told to me. But from my personal experience as a child, right after leaving and being in Malaysia, I was able to make sense of everything, because what happened to me, especially from my personal experiences, I would see injustices done, to Uyghur kids when it came to an Uyghur and a Chinese quarreling or fighting kids. The teachers would always criticize the Uyghur kids more and side with the Chinese kids more. And then even in the streets, we would go to school pretty early in the morning, 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, and I would see, in street corners, in some street corners, workers, hard labor workers, wait there to get picked up or recruited to work. And many of the Uyghur workers there are from the southern cities that come up to work, namely Khotan, because I could recognize their accent. I would see them being more dressed more poorly than the Chinese workers. They looked sad, very melancholic. Their faces would be dirty, and it was always the Chinese that were preferred, to be recruited. And I was also going to a imam's house, a religious Muslim man's house, so that I would get religious education. I didn't know how to pray or anything, because I was kept very far from religion, because that's what they tell you in school, and that's what they expect you to be, far from religion. So I would going to this imam's house. I was told, going there, I shouldn't say anything to anyone about it, and even coming back from the house, I should, not say anything, keep it secret, because my mom would tell me, it would be dangerous, not for me, but for my family and for the imam's family and for other kids' families who go to the imam's house too. So I went in secret in the evenings for like half an hour to an hour, and I stopped going because we were gonna move to Malaysia. And then very recently after that, we found out that the imam was arrested and put in jail because of his religious education that he gives to kids, and he also visits local villages, to see how the people are doing and to help them out financially and also, in spiritual ways. And then I was like, as a kid, yeah, it was terrible. 4 years. So between I was there at 10, at age 10, and when we left, I was 14. So without 1 year education, I went to school. I went to an expatriate school, a private school, and I loved being in school. I loved friends, playing, school teachers, academics, and I skipped a grade to catch up with the gap I had. And I have to say, one of the challenges I experienced myself personally was at first when the question "Where are you from?" addressed at me, because as a kid living in Atush, no one asks you if you live in New York. No one asks you if you're a New Yorker. Your neighbor won't come to you and say, "Where are you from?" So naturally, that question, I've never faced that question. And so when I was asked that question, "Where are you from?" I did not know how to reply. I had no idea what to say, because I would say Atush, but he would have no idea where Atush is. And people will say, it's logical, or you could say China. But then as a kid, being unaware of the fact that Uyghur people deserved, an independent state, East Turkestan, or the fact that the Chinese government is bad or oppressive of its people. I knew none of these, and at the same time, I was not knowing any of these. Still, I couldn't say China, because I never identified myself with China or being Chinese. So I could never, not that even didn't come, it was not even a thought. So I had to figure out how to answer this question, and that was the starting point of my passion to advocate for my people, to talk about my people, to teach people about the Uyghurs, our history, our rich culture, our language, our food, our political state currently. That was the starting point, to find out where I was from, to find out how I would answer a question like that. There is not one answer to that, because sometimes I'm very grateful that I'm abroad, and at other times, because of nostalgia, I so much wish that I was back home, and thinking about the food, fruits, being able to speak Uyghur, and the music, the family, places you grew up in, the house you grew up in. But then, looking at it the other way, I should say I'm lucky to be abroad, because now I see, from news and also from real people, real youth coming from home to abroad, it's not a very nice environment to be in anymore, because of the systematic assimilation politics the Chinese government is playing. And leaving that aside, as a young kid, I had no knowledge, as I've said before, of East Turkestan or the Uyghurs' struggle, the pain that my people are going through. So in order to find out, I had to use adults. That was my only source. And from my observations, as from growing up from age 10, the adults, although they're outside of East Turkestan, outside of China, in the free world, they were not in the free world. They were in the same fear that they were in East Turkestan, if not more, because they had a lack of trust, and they were always doubtful if one or the other person could be a spy or a communicator between the Chinese government. But then, how long is this fear going to continue if we don't start somewhere? honestly, I didn't want to do this. I was fearful of my family members home. I have family members home. But then, where is this gonna go to? If everyone is, I have family home, I have family home, I can't speak out, I can't do this, I can't do that, then why live? So it's been 10 years since I left Atush, and I haven't been back. Neither have my family been back. Everyone else except my immediate family members in my family are in Atush. In terms of being in touch, we are in touch, and we still love one another. There's no doubt in that. But it's hard. It's very difficult. Why? Because there are times where you can't reach them. The line beeps forever and doesn't allow you to go through. But at other times you can reach them. But still, the conversation you have with them isn't a very honest one. I would call it fake. And especially in the past a year or two, I have grown not to want to have a conversation with my family members back home. Not because I don't want to talk to them, not because I don't have that connection with them anymore. More because I get hurt whenever I talk to them. It hurts me very much because it's as if you're playing a role in a playwright. You pick up the phone and you say, "Assalamu alaikum, how are you? How was your day? What did you cook today? Is it sunny? If it's winter, is it snowing? Did it snow? How much did it snow?" And you can't go beyond that. You can't talk about ideas. You can't talk about struggle. And they often ask you, not often ask, they ask you every time, "Will you come back? When will you come back? We miss you. When are you gonna come back?" And you can't really, because you being abroad here, you're also concerned about their safety, and they're very fearful of their own safety. This got to me especially when they were starting to destroy neighborhoods and houses in Kashgar. I called because I had a great uncle who had a house in Kashgar. So I called my aunt, and we were talking. "Hi, how are you?" And so I said to her, how's his house in Kashgar? Did anything happen to it?" I didn't even say did it get destroyed or the houses in Kashgar are being destroyed. Nothing. I just asked how his house was doing, and she sounded nervous, the tone, and didn't really answer the question, and changed the subject, and then the conversation was kept short, and we said bye to one another. I'll never forget what this one 20-year-old Uyghur said. So his exact words were, "I'm blind, deaf, and mute." So it's like, I don't hear anything. How can I tell you anything? And for honestly, for the first few seconds, I was wondering, if you're blind and if you're mute and if you're deaf, how are you sitting there and chatting with me? That's what went through in my mind. I was silly. But then the next few seconds, that was a very powerful 3 words: being blind and being mute, being deaf. And it hit me in the heart. It was too much for me to handle. Here, no one ever thinks about that. And so, it's communicating with home is not easy. It's difficult. And followed by those 3 words, he also said, he asked me, "How's Rabia Kadir doing?" And I said, "She's doing fine. She's doing her job. She's working for it." And she said, he told me, "You're our only hope. You guys, outside the borders, abroad, whether you be in America or in Europe or anywhere else." He said, "You're the hope, and we are hopeful, and that only the hope that we have is in you. And that, you know, that as we were young men, I felt a feeling of responsibility. I mean, they were trusting us. They were hoping. He's saying, our only hope is you guys. And naturally, as a conscious and sensible human being, I felt great obligation, you know, and to meet his hope. And so I try, you know, at any level, whether it be small or big, anything that I can do for my people and home.